What's going on, guys? My name's Cliff, and this is Unpack That Bowl, the show where we take a deep dive into pop culture. On this week's episode, we're doing some movie reviews. I'm going to take a look at Captain Marvel, spoilers, and then I'm going to take a very spoiler-free look at EndGame, because I just saw EndGame this weekend, and amazing, dude. Alright, so first, before I talk about EndGame, I want to talk about Captain Marvel, because I saw that movie on Thursday, and it's a good movie. Now, I did an Unpack That Bowl episode on why representation matters, and in that video, I talk about my point of view. And now, actually having seen Captain Marvel, fuck those dudes. Now, don't get me wrong, the trailer for Captain Marvel did this movie dirty, and sometimes it can be hard for me to take these comic book movies and judge them as movies. But I'm going to try, and I'm going to do that now. So here we go. The MCU is finally ready to introduce you all to Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson. Carol doesn't know much about her past, and we discover it with her. She finds out that she's caught in an alien war between two sides. Now, before I get into why I really do like this movie, I have to talk about some of the flaws in this movie, because it's almost too much to ignore. Captain Marvel is a very bland movie, and when you compare it to the other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, it kind of falls flat. I didn't go into this expecting much, and then I didn't experience much in it. The movie has no visual style. When you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, you can see what style they're going for. When you look at Spider-Man Homecoming, you can see the style it's going for. Here, it's kind of just jarring and all over the place, and some of the fight scenes are confusing. For example, there's a fight scene in the end that's jarring, and I still like it, but it's hard to place where Marvel is. Also, Carol Danvers is just a boring person. Now, in the comic books, Doctor Strange is a boring person too. What the MCU did to Doctor Strange is basically they added some Tony jazz to him, and everyone loved him. Carol has not had the same done for her. Here, Carol just seems very military-esque and frozen and basically stoic the whole way, and I think that's damaging for her character. You know what else is damaging for her character? The script. At least for Carol, the script is kind of trash. And it's not for everyone, but it feels like no one in this movie knew how to write for Carol, so her lines feel confusing and are hit or miss. And it doesn't help that it really doesn't feel like Brie Larson has that Marvel charm yet. And that's fine. Like I said, Doctor Strange was weird and unfocused in his movie, but he's fine in later movies like Infinity War. And the first Winter Soldier, Sam Wilson is kind of awkward, but he grows into his Falcon role. Paul Rudd was always that nigga. Carol Danvers' past is pieced together pretty loosely, and when we get to the twist, it almost makes the movie kind of confusing. When telling a story with a character who doesn't remember their past, it can get kind of hard to tell a cohesive story. And by the third act, when Carol realizes her identity, she becomes almost too powerful. And I don't mean that as a diss. I mean that she's so powerful that we know she's going to win. So there's no tension. There's nothing that's keeping us on the edge of our seat. Well, there's something there. I'll talk about that later. But the bright spots in Captain Marvel really outshine the flaws it has. Like, when the movie gets to Earth, I think that's when it really hits its stride. But ultimately, I think the bright spots in Captain Marvel really outshine their flaws. When the movie gets to Earth, I think it really hits its stride. For example, the first act and the second act are really funny, and they're really good. It's paced really well so that when there's not action, we get funniness, and then it's never like a boring moment. So I like the way it's paced. The interaction between Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson, and Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, is really cool. They bounce off each other so well, and they both killed every scene that they were in together. The supporting cast is really good too, I don't want to knock them, especially Carol's friend. She's fucking amazing. She's so talented. She gives a monologue in the third act. She's played by Lashana Lynch. Outperformed Brie Larson How? It's amazing. Like I said, the pace was all right. I was on my seat the whole movie. And I have this one friend who passes out during every movie we watch. He stayed up for this. I like the fact that this is a fish out of water situation. And it kind of reminded me of Terminator 2. In fact, when Bree steals the motorcycle, I think that's a direct nod to Terminator 2. The 90s scenes were cool too, but it almost felt like we get it. Once I saw the Radio Shack and Blockbuster, I already knew what it was. I thought the loading screen was kind of cool too, because they were sitting there like, what? Just don't go faster? And they like, nah. I really want to talk about the groundbreaking CGI that down-aged Clark Gregg, but more importantly, Samuel L. Jackson. It really was stunning, and at times, I forgot that I wasn't watching Samuel L. Jackson do this. I was watching a CGI version of him. But after the first few scenes, it blended into the background, and that's the best stuff, because the best stuff is so seamless, you don't even see it. Towards the end of Captain Marvel, Carol became one of the strongest Marvel players, and I think that's really cool. The opening moments were cool, and they were kind of expository, but it wasn't too heavy. Carol breaking out was probably the dopest escape scene I've seen in a while. Especially when she comes back and she's like, nigga, give me my boots. Also, the score was really cool. And some other cool things I want to talk about would be Goose the cat. That nigga was lit, and it tips you off that he wasn't the cat the whole time, because he was like, what's a cat? And it also gave us a backstory for how Nick Fury lost his eye. Because if you remember back in The Winter Soldier, Nick Fury says, the last time I trusted somebody, I lost an eye. And then we see him lose that eye. So while Captain Marvel wasn't the greatest movie out there, I think it was a substantial stepping stone for Carol and her character. Hopefully they can get better writers and get Carol some better stuff. But I give this movie 7.5 out of 10. Now, let's get into the real meat of this review. I saw EndGame last Sunday, and it was incredible. So this is my spoiler-free review of Avengers EndGame. The MCU is an 11-year, 22-movie project. It is impractical, it was illogical, and it was unthought of. If I told you back in 2008 there's going to be a 20-plus movie universe, all made by one studio, you would have thought I was crazy. But the MCU did it. And then we saw Infinity War, and it blew our minds and broke our hearts. Where do we go from there? Everyone had these theories about what's going to happen, and the first 20 minutes of EndGame cuts those theories. Just off those theories. I might believe that, because that's kind of a spoiler. And now we're at EndGame. We're really knocking on the doorsteps of the end of Phase 3. EndGame really gives audiences a nearly perfect, fully fulfilling end to a saga. Whereas Infinity War is a buildup of so many things, and it's driven by ensemble pieces that we've all grown to know and love, EndGame is something different. EndGame serves as more as a love letter to the 6 original characters, with some help from some new characters. And a rat. This made sure we got to spend our final hours with just the OGs. EndGame's plot might not make the most sense, and the time travel storyline might not be the most logical, but I guess I heard someone say we're using Dragon Ball Z time travel logic, so boom. The action and what the story actually does for the characters is what make this movie enjoyable. So yes, does EndGame have flaws? Obviously. When we've gone through this entire process of the MCU, it has been filled with flaws, and we have overlooked them. I've acknowledged them, but I've also talked about why we overlooked them. Some flaws are more glaring than others, and I'm looking at you, Dark World. I'm looking at you, Hulk. Others are tiny and insignificant, and I think when I rewatch EndGame, I'll probably find some more, but for now, I think it doesn't matter. This movie's too good. So what do I do now before I pick it apart and I tell you how I really feel about it in my spoiler-heavy review? I revel in it. I celebrate it. But brace yourselves. It's a wild, emotional, exhilarating, celebratory ride that you need to take with multiple people. It takes a tiny piece from every film, and it really gives each character something for us to remember them by. Each character gets their own little send-off, and they remind you why you fell in love with each and every one of them. And this has to be the second MCU movie where Tom Holland has made me cry. Seriously, like, I swear, they were cutting onions in the movie theater. Avengers EndGame is so many things. It's a joyous and tragic and exuberating and completely bonkers spectacle of a comic book movie. It's a gorgeous mess, and it's basically like a hot fudge sundae with every topping you can think of. So much so that you feel like, I can't possibly finish this. But guess what? 3 hours later, the bowl's empty. And your belly doesn't ache. You only want more. And what was this but one long car ride? We're almost at the end. A bunch of our passengers just got out. Like I said, I'm going to do a spoiler-heavy review of EndGame. So for now, I want you to sit on that. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. Thanks for watching, guys. My name's Cliff. And as always, this has been Unpack That Bowl. Peace.